Hello there! It's been a long time since I gave an update on the script. Since the last video, the main thing has been stuff that's sort of behind the curtain. It's a lot of restructure of the codes. There's been a lot of optimization, how the different elements interact with each other. So I want to just do a small walkthrough of some of those things, especially if you're new here. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk about what things I could see coming to the script, what I would love to make for it. But it's also a little bit depending on how many people use it, what's nice, user feedback, everything. But let's get started just with a brief walkthrough of some of the new changes. So you see a bit of a new layout here. Actually, I should have started like this because this is sort of how it looked before. We had kind of 4 panels that have been combined into 2 panels, which is now plugins and modulators. And then here we have a list view of plugins, and we can show and hide that within the plugins window. And the same thing goes for the modules list. That was, we can show and hide that. And then we can, of course, collapse the full thing like that. So we can easily navigate our things. And then within the modulators, we can also hide all the modulators that you have added or not. For the plugins, you can see it's the same icon here, but this has like one in the middle. It means that it's the focused plugin, so we can go through the focused plugin like this. Or we can show all the plugins. So the focused thing here doesn't really matter in that regard. And we can open them up and see multiple at the same time. And then if we look at the plugins, they also got an icon up here where you can open their windows. And whenever that is apparent for a modulator, we also have that icon down here. A thing that I worked really hard on is to have everything just scale better, because it's should fit any size that you might work with. Like if you do like this or this, you can see the names are kept in the middle, and then once they can't stay in the middle, they will like stick to somewhere, and if there's no room for these things, it will also show if it's compressing the name. So we can actually run like a very tiny thing without it looking too ugly. And this also works really well in the vertical mode. You can see that things just in general looks better. If I take it down here again, there's a couple more icons, like we can sort modulators by names, and we can also map only one parameters when this one is activated. It's just trying to condense things into icons, making it a bit more logical. Now we have only the focused plugin and showing all plugins. We will get the same thing for modulators at some point. Now it's just show or hide, which means that we get another panel here, which will be the list of all your added modulators. So it will be a nice overview as well. And this whole thing took a long time, because understanding how I can put panels within panels and get things to scale properly in both vertical and horizontal, that was terrible. But now it works pretty well. And if we continue with some of these visual adjustments, and I open up the settings here, we always had knobs and sliders, but we have a new Actually, this one should be default just on this preview. So we have knobs and sliders. This is very common, or like what we're used to. But then we have this new one, which is narrow. And it will, you can see that it kind of compresses it in. For the sliders, it will put the value at the same spot as the text, or as the name. And for knobs, we need a little extra space, and it will do the same. This new thing is nice, of course, if you work with like a very compressed panel like this. We can actually see that. But we also have a new option here, which is we can show more knobs per row. So if we do like this, maybe a little bit wider, now we have a much quicker, or we see much more of the plugin. We basically have a whole plugin represented here in this one, just like that. It could also be sliders, and that actually we can set this individually, so you can see these are the compressed knobs. And then for the plugins, if I change to sliders, we see that like this. So I can also change the general setting, and it changes at the other spots. If we go to knobs, here looks nice. We can also go to modulators, say knobs, and we can show a couple more per row. So now if you would be working like this, you have something that looks much more like a widget that's like designed for this stuff. Some of these do not look that nice. Like this one would make sense to make it much more narrow when it's horizontal, but vertical it would look like this, would look nice this way. Yeah, so but it's at least a step in the direction of compressing things, and I actually really like this narrow knobs because they there's something about how they give a good amount of information. It's easier to visually differentiate the different elements. But the option of doing however you want it is there. Let's see. This is a new button as well. We can have pluses between everything. I think I will do the same thing for plugins. More on that later. We can actually make a panel a fixed size now as well. So if I click this one, you can see now this is only this wide. We can change the width here. It's the same thing when it's in vertical mode. What's nice about this is that you could sort of like decide how big it should be, and we go to the next track and it looks pretty much the same. If I did the same thing with the plugins panel like this, then we sort of have a fixed layout, you could say. Just to talk about what I hope to do as well is that I'm thinking we can pin the panels to the left or to the right, where they will sort of be stuck no matter what happens in the middle. We also have the option here to have headers on the horizontal. We can have them on top like this, which is how it kind of was originally. So you see then, let's just take away in modulators, let's not have it fixed. You can see if I close it up, it looks a bit different. I like both modes. I don't know which one I like best, but it's an option. This is a bit more consistent in terms of open and closing, but I also think it looks very nice to have the name on top. I think it depends on how wide your panels are as well, because if you run them pretty compressed, it's you don't see the full name maybe. What you also see here is that we have the default visualizer size can be changed down to 0, which means that instead of showing it in the, if I click here with super, I can push it down into, let's just do like this for consistency. So when I close, this thing goes into the name, else it doesn't. And we can change the size of this. But we can also put it out here, which just makes everything more compressed. Of course, if you have a thing like this, you don't really see it if it's in here. But that's the option of where to put it now, making it more consistently. And these things are individual per plugin, so yeah, if you like one where you really see it a lot when you open it up, that's an option. We can also change if we want more space between the widgets, call them widgets, these things, if that gives you a better sort of like, oh, this is one modulator, this is another. So there's some tweaking options there. Colors, got a few more colors in order to, it was a breaking change, but in order to get more layers of colors between the modulators, or what I'm saying, the sort of parent widget and the children widgets. Then we have the performance page here. We don't really need to go in here. Most of these things are enabled by default, but I spent a lot of time trying to find out how to optimize the script. So we're doing a sort of catching. If I disable that, you can see we went from reading 600 on every frame to reading 1100. You can also build like a parameter. Like we filter things we don't need to see. For instance, in Serum, if we open Serum up and look in the parameters here, there's like all these parameters called CC, which there's so many of them, and it can really stall performance. So that's something we can filter, and we can also limit how often we read all the links. And if I disable all these things, you can see we're now reading 15,000 per frame, and our frame has dropped even though I didn't change anything. So you should in general experience a much more stable setup. We can also choose how many parameters we draw on a plugin like Serum. If we enable or disable this, the list is huge, and I don't know if we really need to be able to scroll through like such a big list. Maybe we just limit it to a little less because it requires less CPU, and then you can go here and you can say I want to do something with the main things, and then yeah, we can do that way. Now I want to talk about what I hope to make in the future. So the first thing would be a type of macros. So just like we have the panels here, this thing, actually let's change to this. So we can, right now there's only one mode for a plugin, which is like the search mode where you can search for different buttons. But we should have one that's also macro, where you can basically build which or select which buttons you want to see, how big it should be when you open it up. So we will have another icon on that. That's probably one of the first things I want to add. I would love to add more panels to this thing as well. Right now we have plugins and modulators, which are basically the same thing, especially when we have them on this list. I would love to add like a volume slider. You could fix it out to the side here. We could also have a widget showing all the sends and receives of the track. So just more widgets. Also, we're gonna have a matrix widget that will show all the different mappings in one place. Right now we can see the mappings for this specific plugin, or for this specific modulator, but it would be nice to have a full list, which means that it's gonna be much bigger, this whole window, you could say. So what I want to add as well is having the option to have multiple windows, so to speak, or layers. I don't know what I'm gonna call it. So you can design which modules or panels a layer is showing, and then you could have here on the side, maybe you would have the overview, the matrix overview of all mappings, and down here you have maybe all the plugins. Maybe you don't need to see modulators if you're using the floating mapper. It will be very customizable if we had more layers and you can have them vertical or horizontal freely. I'm kind of thinking we should have 3 in case you want that. The last thing I want to share with you is this concept that I've been thinking about, which is instead of using the floating mapper, we would have this overlay thing. So if we just added a few overlays here, yeah, whatever. The idea is that we could quickly map a plugin, and then now it's just a circle, but you could design that where instead of having to see like the width and all that on a separate window, we would just see it on top of the plugin, and you could change it right from the plugin. You could change the baseline, where the center of the parameter should be, and it would remember it per plugin. And that might also later be a way that we can get plugins visually down here, which would be a combination of images and some ImGUI slider stuff on top. So it's something I really would love to make, but we'll see if I find the time to do it. But it's at least a concept. There's already a bit of a framework, you can see. So yeah, that's a little update and walkthrough. Have a nice one.